Exactly. Good morning. Good morning. Hey. Oh my gosh, I got it coming on both sides. I've got competing good mornings. Competing good mornings. I love it. Thank you. Well, I want to welcome all of you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane by reminding you of our mission statement, which I do each Sunday. We join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Also like to begin by welcoming all of you, embracing all that you bring with you to this place, all of your uniqueness, your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences, all that helps make you who you are is welcome here today. And this includes those of you who are in the room with us, those of you who might be joining us for the first time, and the many of you who are streaming with us, live streaming with us as well today. We're glad to have you. Or even watching the recording of the stream, because I know there's some of you that do that too. So welcome to one and all. Glad to have you as part of our community today. Before we break to greet one another, I have a couple of announcements I want to make about the services that are coming up the next 2 weeks. Some exciting stuff. Next Sunday, February 26th, our former City Council President Ben Stuckert will be here with Gavin Cooley, who served 18 years as Spokane's Chief Financial Officer, to talk about a subject that they are both not only passionate about but are actively involved in, and that is solutions to homelessness. And I've heard them both present before, and they really have some interesting things to say. I think you're going to benefit a lot from attending that. And then afterwards at 12:30 Pacific time, for those who are streaming with us, because we will be live streaming, Ben and Gavin are going to continue this important conversation with a panel discussion that will include some Q&A time as well. Again, they're both taking an active role in promoting working solutions to homelessness in our community, and they have a lot to share. So thanks to, I noted at our first service, I wrote Quest instead of guest speaker team, Marina. So thanks to our Quest speaker team, but I think Quest works better. What do you think? So we'll go with that, our Quest speaker team, for continuing to bring such knowledgeable and interesting speakers to. So please thank the entire team for the good work you're doing. Also want to thank the Social Justice Coordinating Council for helping to put together the panel discussion afterwards. So this is an issue that's impacting all of us in our community as well as our society and in many places in the world. So. And then the following Sunday, on March 5th, is going to be our annual Partner Church Sunday. That is the Sunday in which we celebrate what is now our longtime relationship with our partner church in Fel Shirakos, Romania. I can't remember how long we've been part of this. Was it 81, 82? Does anybody remember? When?
1990, I think.
91.
Was it 91?
The revolt was 89.
Right.
Okay?
Did I say 1880? I said yeah. Okay. So it was in the 90s. Yeah. I was thinking it was right after the end of the Cold War, and I was dating it into the 80s. You're right. So ever since really the Eastern Bloc fell, and we were able to resume some kind of normal relationships with people around the world, we have been partners. There's a partner church program in which a lot of Unitarian churches here are partners with congregations there, and ours has been in Felșarakos, Romania. And I had the wonderful pleasure of being able to do a Zoom conversation and interview, a recording really, with Reverend Elad Szabo, who is the dean of one of the 7 districts in the Hungarian Unitarian Church, which is the name of their church there, their sort of association, if you will, in that part of the world. And their district, his district happens to be the largest, and it also includes the Felșarakos congregation. And he's minister of a church about 4 miles away, so he's very involved with and knows our partner church as well. But he's also just a brilliant man. Speaks English wonderfully. He's been to the States. He's taught in one of our seminaries as a guest professor, and really understands our culture and the differences and the similarities between Unitarianism in the United States and Unitarianism in Eastern Europe. So I think you're going to get a lot from that, as well as he'll talk a bit about what's going on with our partner church itself. But a really wonderful conversation. I think you'll enjoy it. So you'll be able to see that on March 5th. And he also has an important announcement. I'm not going to make it now about something wonderful that's happened at our partner church in Felșarakos. So I'll just leave that as a teaser for you. So two great services coming up. Hope you'll attend. And for now, let's just take a couple of extra minutes this morning to greet one another here in the room. If you're streaming, feel free to shoot me or somebody else a text you might be thinking of.
Thank you. You got a choir. We got a choir. Laura? Where's Jean? There she is. There. Jean. Okay, we'll see you.
Oh, thank you. More opportunity to visit during our social hour following the service, but let's move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that... Wait, I'm repeating the same line there, sorry. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world. You think I'd have this down? Actually, my mind is racing. The first service was really a lot of fun, but boy, it was frenetic. So may it be a flame that ignites justice in our world, a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
For the opening words, an excerpt from The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. "Good morning," said Bilbo, and he meant it. The sun was shining and the grass was very green. But Gandalf looked at him from under long, bushy eyebrows that stuck out further than the brim of his shady hat. "What do you mean?" he said. "Do you wish me a good morning? Or mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not? Or that you feel good this morning? Or that it is a morning to be good on?" "All of them at once," said Bilbo, "and a very fine morning for a pipe of tobacco out of doors into the bargain." After a bit, Bilbo said, "Good morning. We don't want any adventures here, thank you. You might try over the hill or across the water." By this he meant the conversation was at an end. "What a lot of things you do use good morning for," said Gandalf. "Now you mean that you want to get rid of me, and it won't be good until I move off."
Our first in-service hymn this morning is called "Do You Hear?" Please rise as you're willing and able.
We'll now kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning, and I did not receive any specific requests. Actually, I did get a request earlier. Glad I remembered. Jimmy Carter, yes, who I think a beloved figure of our time, at least for many of us, who has announced that he has gone under hospice care. So be very pleased to kindle a candle in honor of this man who's been a magnificent light for many. And also a candle, as we have been, on behalf of the people of Ukraine and all those who are suffering due to the violence in that region of the world. And a candle for the people of Turkey and Syria who continue to suffer what is just an incredibly devastating earthquake. I can't even imagine what they're going through. So let's take a moment of silence now on behalf of them, as well as others you might be thinking of, and you'd be welcome to name them aloud if you'd like.
Joyce Wade.
Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. We do have a special collection this month, or I should say our special collection this month, because we have one almost every month, is for Compassionate Addiction Treatment, CAT. It's a local organization that provides compassionate, holistic care for people suffering from substance abuse disorders, including addiction, obviously in a safe and therapeutic environment. CAT focuses on removing barriers to treatment so people can better concentrate on recovery and live up to their fullest potential. It has a particular focus on people experiencing both homelessness and addiction issues at once. I'm confident this ministry will speak to many of you. If so, please feel free to use the special collection envelope that was in your order of service, so we'll know that it is to be used for this purpose. If you're streaming with us and would like to go online and make a contribution, just signify that that's what it's for, and we'd appreciate it very much. We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world. Thank you so much. And it is now time for our story for all ages. So if some of you would like to come up front where you can see closer, that would be great. Right, Theo? Easy. Hey, Brooke. There's Charlie. What's going on? You see those kids up here? I know. Well, I've got a special friend as usual today. I think some of you will recognize my friend. Who do you think it is? Charlie? It's not Charlie today. Do you guys recognize this fellow? Yes. Winnie the Pooh. Yes, Winnie, it's great to have you. Thank you. Now, why are you here all the way from the 100-acre wood? Well, I've come to borrow some honey, if I may. I see. Well, we'd be happy to give you some honey. But I'd like to borrow a honey pot, too. And a honey pot, too. What happened to your honey pot? Well, you see, Christopher Robin, yes, he gave me a taste, then took the rest high on a shelf out of reach, so I wouldn't be tempted to eat it all at once. Well, so you have a honey in a honey pot, you're just unable to reach it. Well, not exactly. Oh, I see. What happened? Well, you see, Tigger came for a visit. Oh, that explains it. And he offered to dance up and get the honey tot thorny. Tigger, you know who Tigger is, right? A tiger with a spring in his tail that bounces wildly everywhere he goes. I see you've met Tigger. Well, I know of Tigger. So did you tell Tigger that Christopher Robin wanted you to leave the honey pot on the shelf for good reason? Well, I would have, except for the rumbly in your tumbly. Yes, how did you know? Well, I wasn't sure, but I figured better for me to say it than you. It's very hard to say without moving your mouth, you know. Okay, so then what happened? Well, Tigger danced so high, he hit his head on the ceiling, then hit the shelf, and he and the honey came crashing to the floor. Oh my goodness, that must have made a mess. Yes, and now Tigger isn't able to dance very high because his tail keeps sticking to the floor. Well, that makes sense. Well, don't worry, nothing's going to be able to slow Tigger down for long. He'll be his bouncy self before long. Yes, but I'm afraid my honey tot will never be the same. Well, maybe not, but you know, it reminds me of a story, Pooh, about a city mayor who was so busy one day that he'd forgotten to eat anything and decided to stop at a restaurant to get a delicious cup of soup on his way to a very important meeting. Well, it sounds very good. Well, it was probably pretty good. Anyway, he goes into the restaurant and he says, "Please excuse me," rushing past everyone else in line. He said, "But I'm on my way to a very important meeting." And since everybody knew he was the mayor, they politely let him pass. And once he got up to the counter, he said, "Please give me a cup of your best soup to go. I'll eat it in my limousine." And the woman working the counter was the owner and the cook and was famous for having the best soup in town. Well, it must have been made with honey. It probably was, but I don't know because she never told anybody her secret recipe. "Wait here," she said to the mayor, and the mayor waited. And he waited, and he waited some more, becoming increasingly agitated until he finally shouted, "Where's my soup? I told you I'm in a hurry." And the owner peeked her head out the door, at the door of the kitchen, and she said, "Just a few moments more." Then she disappeared again. So the mayor waited a bit longer. And a bit longer, and a bit longer, growing hungrier and hungrier. And he finally shouted, in a bit of a softer voice, "Please, I'm a very important person, and I have an important meeting to go to, and I'm getting very hungry. I think he's going to be late." He probably is going to be late. Anyway, the owner poked her head out the kitchen door again, and she said, "It's almost ready. Just a moment longer." Then she disappeared again. And the mayor looked at his watch, and he knew he should just leave, but he also heard the rumbly in his tumbly, and so did everyone else. So he knew he better eat something before he went to his meeting, his important meeting. And just then the kitchen door swung open, and the owner came out and gave him his cup of soup. And he was in such a hurry that he slapped a $20 bill on the counter and said, "Keep the change." Then he took the lid off the cup and began sipping on it as he headed for the door. But after his first sip, he stopped, forgetting about his meeting, and he turned to the owner and said, "This is the most delicious soup I've ever had. What is your secret?" "I've never given away my recipe," she said, "but I will tell you the most important ingredient, if you'll just sit down at a table long enough to enjoy it." The mayor looked at his watch, and he looked at his soup, and he took another sip, and then he called his office and said, "Please cancel my meeting. Something very important has come up." Then he sat down and he took another sip and asked, "What's the most important ingredient?" And she said, "It's patience." "You knew it?" "Yes." "May I have another cup?" he asked. "But aren't you in a hurry?" she said. "No," the mayor said, "I have all the time in the world." There, do you understand, Pooh? "Of course I do, but I don't quite understand what it is I understand." Well, it means that some of the best things in life are worth waiting for, right, guys? And do you know what one of the best things is, Pooh? Honey. That's right, honey. And if you do as Christopher Robin suggests, put some of your honey away for later, it's going to taste all the sweeter when you do have it. "Yes, but all this talk of honey has given me a rumbly in your tumbly," right? "That's right. Tell you what, Pooh, if you'll be patient just a little bit longer, I'll get you some honey after our service, and we'll get some glue and fix your honey pot good as new. Just don't let Tigger anywhere near it. Tiggers and honey don't go good together." Thank you, Pooh. Would you like to help sing the children out? Certainly. Very good, Theo. Thank you. He's got quite an arm on him.
For the meditation, some words from Albert Einstein. There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle.
The choir today is singing little sayings and quips from Mark Twain. The total collection of these short pieces is called Points to Ponder Upon. Now, I'm the first one to know that, of course, sometimes it's hard to hear choral words. So we've worked hard on enunciation, but if you are still missing a piece, you can come up and see me after the service and see what it is, okay?
Thank you. So we've had conversations with Gandalf and Bilbo Baggins today, and with Mark Twain, and now conversations with Todd. I feel pale in comparison. But this is something I like to do periodically to just sort of open the congregation up to questions that might be on your mind. I don't like to deal with, church business matters, or that is things that would be better dealt with in a church board meeting or a congregational meeting, but otherwise I'm pretty open to things. It's kind of fun. The first service we had somebody who streams with us had sent in a question, and then we had folks on Zoom with questions, and then folks in the audience, so it was kind of dynamic, and I actually was able to get to two questions, no. A few more than that. I'll try not to be as long-winded as I can be, but nevertheless, who has a question? It was all good? Thank you, Deb. Thank you. Yes? Karen? Yeah. Oh, you know what, Karen? I was going to ask. Yeah, I've got a microphone here. Let's do this so that... Check, test. Todd's turning it up now. Thank you. This way I won't have to repeat it or paraphrase it.
Okay, great. I had to write this down because it's a bit convoluted.
Okay.
Todd,
that's the way my mind works.
Yes. Todd, I want you to pretend that you're meeting with Ron DeSantis, who has attacked left-wing wokeism in his fight to control school curricula in Florida. Now, you've criticized wokeism from a liberal perspective. So in your conversation with Governor DeSantis, how would you differentiate your position from his?
Wow. Oh, my God. What a great question. Good question. Yes, I don't think Ron DeSantis and I are on the same page. For the same reasons I'm not on the same page with wokeism, right? So this is something I talked a little bit about in the first service. Liberalism, which is being misrepresented by the far right and is misunderstood by the far right and has been for years, and has really become misunderstood by this extreme group that has moved into liberal organizations and decimated many of them, or at least led to conflict or dysfunction in many of them. They both suffer from the same problem. They're not liberal, and that's what I would tell DeSantis. Not in a cruel way. I think I get along wonderfully with conservatives. I was in a meeting this week with mostly conservative religious leaders that I've been meeting with for a couple of months now. The new sheriff came to that meeting and spoke. I really like him. We will not agree on politics, but I was glad to hear his perspective. And this group, by the way, when we're going over trying to come up with a list of common values that all these religions have in common that we could present to our community, and it started off as a very long list, and then we narrowed it down. But one of the first words that came up was the word obedience, and somebody expressed that obedience is a very common value. The Bible says you should be obedient to the authorities, and I was the one to say, listen, whatever comes out of this group is going to be fine with me as long as I can tell my congregation that this is what I said in response. And I said, obedience would bother us. It rings of authoritarianism, and we are extremely anti-authoritarian, and Unitarians really gave birth to civil disobedience. There's oftentimes that the authorities cause harm, and we're not for that. And that group said, well, then you know what? We're going to get it out of here, because this is going to be a group that offers consensus. And that happened often during that night. So we can meet with these folks if we're meeting on common ground and we know each other personally. We can love each other. It's very easy. So if I was in a room with Ron DeSantis having a conversation, I think it might go well for both of us. But I would also tell him, you're misrepresenting liberalism. And I disagree with the basis of your ethics. Because liberalism is a way. It is not an ideology, right? Our problem with wokeism, as it's being called, cancel culture, illiberalism, political correctness, whatever, is the way that it approaches its goals. It's not necessarily its goals, right? Liberalism is rooted in the Enlightenment principle that was articulated by Immanuel Kant as a categorical imperative. The one thing that we can do must do in every situation. It's always the right thing to do. And that was to always consider, or I should say, to never consider somebody else an end to somebody else's, or a means to somebody else's ends, I should say, but an end within themselves. And that was translated later by other thinkers, and Erich Fromm's version of it is that everything we do, every institution, our jobs, our business, our governments, our laws that we pass, our education system, everything we should do should be for the goal of human welfare and individual unfolding, right? So that people can have the freedom in a society to achieve their full potential. That's our moral guide, because we are motivated by the Enlightenment principle of the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And that means to maintain that, to create that, to establish it and maintain it, we have to have societies that are based on reason, freedom, and tolerance. And by reason, I don't mean just being able to think well. That helps, really, for those who don't think well. Learning to think well is important. But reason is really, it is in contrast to dogma and doctrine and ideology, right? That was the truth of the pre-Socratic philosophers 2,600 years ago, that you can figure it out for yourself. That's why we say we believe in human reason, because you don't need a church authority to come down on you, or the government to come down on you for speaking differently than the government authorities do. So it is the approach. I would think that Ron DeSantis, if somebody sat him down and said, no, this is what liberalism is. Whatever you're construing it at, in order to win elections, is a lie. This is what liberalism is. Liberalism is a way of living. It is a way of seeing the world. And it drives us to the goals of creating human welfare and individual unfolding. That's what it's about. And to be able to have the opportunity to explain that to people who are more conservative, or consider themselves conservative. Unfortunately, conservatives have been sort of ensnared by folks who claim to be conservative but are actually neoliberals, because they don't believe that the government should be involved in anything. The liberal perspective is that we've got to have governments that adhere to the rule of law and exist in order to maintain the rights of people. In other words, human welfare and individual unfolding. That's the kind of societies that liberals want to exist. And we have to have governments to do that, but those governments are formed by the people and work for the people on their behalf. I probably wouldn't get to say all that to DeSantis, but I would want to at least make the point about what liberalism is. And then the other thing I would say is we don't have to imagine being in a room with DeSantis to say that. That's the message. That's our message. That's the liberal message. We should be saying this. We should not shy away. That question came up during the first service. What about progressives? In the language of calling ourselves progressives instead of liberals. Well, progressives, was created by George Lakoff. He said, let's use this because, remember George Lakoff, don't think like an elephant, and he got hired by the Democratic Party and said, let's rebrand ourselves because liberalism has such gotten such a bad stigma attached to it. But progressive just means moving forward. That's not what liberalism is about. Liberalism is not about just moving forward. It's about It's about establishing greater human welfare and individual unfolding in a certain way. And if that means making progress and changing, we're ready to do it. But it doesn't mean we change just for change's sake. Progressivism seems to mean we're just going to change. We're going to change society. We're going to create income equality. We're going to create better equality for people who've been marginalized. Wonderful goals, but we don't care how we get there. If we have to lay the hammer down, which is something liberal organizations have been doing for decades and led to things like communist Russia and communist China, because two of the most authoritarian regimes in the world, when we approach our goals through an authoritarian mindset that we're going to control everybody to do the right thing, to accomplish the right thing, it's not liberalism. And it's sad to me that those of us in this church are being lumped in with an extremism that has attached itself to liberal communities that is illiberal. It is a sickness in liberalism. So, I don't know if that answered your question. Okay, good. Tom.
My question this morning involves Ukraine, which we all recognize is in great peril, and that one could argue that imperils the entire world to some degree or another. But there's also a feeling among a number of people that we being the United States and other countries in the world, can only go so far with our expenditure to try to help Ukraine overcome what is its issue with Russia right now. So what are your thoughts regarding how much of our resources as a country should be spent on assisting Ukraine, when one could argue that that money could do far more good in a different sort of way here in our country with the issues that we're faced with?
Well, I think that we should spend enough money to help Putin find a hole to hide in for the rest of his life. That's my opinion. It's kind of not an either-or question. I really think it's a both-and question. It's incredibly troubling to me that Republicans and Democrats can come together and continue to choose to approve the spending of hundreds of billions of dollars in this war, but can't come together to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on the urgent needs that we have. We have that money. We can do it. I don't see it as a lack of resources, as a lack of will. And it goes right back to what I was saying about human welfare and individual unfolding. The way our government works right now is that those are not its focus. I think the Democrats, to a larger degree, would like to do things that are going to benefit the masses, at least of Americans, and also continue to be as generous as we can to countries overseas, as well as immigrants that are wanting to come into our country. But those processes have been stopped by pretty much a gridlock government that has existed now for decades, regardless of who is in power. They're so close in their governance that there's just a lot of blocking and gridlock and nothing happening. So the real question to me is not so much do we spend it on Ukraine or do we spend it on our country? Why are we not passing these bills that have been put forward to fund the programs that Ronald Reagan and the Republican Party have demolished, the FDR systems that were put into place to guarantee a healthy middle class, right? Why did FDR's reforms get destroyed beginning with Reagan and have continued to be destroyed until this day? And the people that are most hurt by it fall into this belief that government is the problem. Reagan started it, right? Government is not the solution, government is the problem. Government has to be the solution, and it has to be a liberal government that cares about the welfare of people and the unfolding of individuals. Right? That every individual in our society, regardless of their color, of their sexuality, of their wealth status, right, of their belief system, of their birth origins, of their political ideology, deserve to be able to live in a society in which they can achieve their full potential. And if we're not doing that, we're failing them. So my answer would really be, one, what Putin is a threat, I believe. My belief is that Putin is a threat. He's trying to reestablish the Eastern Bloc, one country at a time. He got away with it with Crimea, and thinks he's just going to go in and continue to move one country at a time and regain that sort of Cold War status for whatever reason he seems to glory in. No, he has to be stopped. I think we need to do what it takes to stop him. So spending the money is okay with me. I'm just not good with the fact that they would spend that much on something that's going on in a foreign country to protect their power status, in our government, and not be willing to do it to benefit the welfare of their own citizens, to spend that kind of money, those kind of resources necessary. We could fix a lot of things with an influx of resources. And by the way, I believe in taxes. Being a minister in a church, that's what we do. We depend upon each other to pay for everything we do together. So that's what taxes do, right? They enable us to pool our resources so that we can do a whole lot more and have a lot more than we would otherwise. And this idea that we've got to stop being taxed by our government, that only leads to more suffering. People should be taxed fairly. So we have the resources, Tom. We just aren't using them because our government's not working for us the way it should. There's Dick right there, has his hand.
Thanks, Todd. So locally, one of the pressing problems that we face, and you've mentioned this before, is homelessness. Mm-hmm. In your dream wish fulfillment, what would you see as the architecture of an effective approach to grappling with these problems of homelessness? And more particularly, how would you see religious organizations such as our church involved in that?
Yeah. Boy, it's certainly a complicated problem, but I'm no expert on it. You'll hear from those guys next week, but I think it goes right back to what we were talking about, right? We need the funding. I'm not one of those who thinks that the answer is housing first. I do. I think shelter is a basic necessity, so we have to provide shelter to people who don't have it. But I think that shelter should come with some guarantees, that with some requirements that include people, getting the help that they might need, and being as functional at least as they can be in society, those sort of things. But the problem is, we don't have those programs. We're not. When we got involved in the Smart Justice program back when I first came here in 2011, and a lot of folks got in to say, hey, let's have this Smart Justice, and we'll use evidence-based programs and diversion court and get people into programs that will help them. But those programs don't exist, So a lot of people are in, and now we have this economic system where, because so many people are moving into cities, that there's high demand for homes, and we haven't been building homes like we should have been to keep up with these changes, and so now people are being priced out. Even working people are being priced out of homes. You know, I see people, I'm sure a lot of you do too, we see people living in automobiles that are nice automobiles, right? These aren't wrecks. These are people who have nice vehicles. They had resources, but between choosing to get rid of their car or their home, they could afford to keep their car, or at least hide it so it doesn't get repossessed. I don't know, you know. But people are living in these automobiles because it's the only choice they have now. So I think, again, we have to do something about the income inequality in this country that has created a system in which people cannot afford the very basic essentials that we need. And housing should be considered, I believe, a right. It doesn't mean the government has to pay for it. It means that the government has to create an economic system in which we can all pay for what we need. Right? So I guess that would be my thing is, you know, if we were going to have an influx of money, we would actually build the programs we say we believe in. You know, we would create you know, this is why this CAT is such an important thing to support, because it's one of those programs that is working with people who are addicted, which is a big reason some people are on the street. Right? So you've got the chronically homeless, which are a lot of the people we see, you know, who are on the streets, are the chronically homeless that will be homeless because of some dysfunction in their lives. But there are a lot of working Americans that have dropped into homelessness because they don't have a job that can pay an outlandish amount of money. And I hear these stories often of people that are, you know, they get a notice, your rent's going to go up $500 next month. That's it. They go out on the streets. They don't have $6,000 a year more to spend. So I think it goes back to what Tom was getting at, you know, or my response to Tom, that we need to create the programs to help people who are on the streets. You know, for example, here's a simple thing. You know, here's a simple thing. This group that I'm involved in, you know, one of the things they talk about is helping to create a safe and clean Spokane. Now that's an interesting term. I haven't gotten into that with them yet because we've not talked about it. But I'm not real big on the idea of clean. I mean, I am. Louisville was a very clean city. It was a beautiful city. And one of the things that troubles me about Spokane, it always has, is, you know, you drive around the neighborhoods and the streets, you see these weeds that are growing up out of the cracks of the sidewalk, you know, taller than I am. You know, and there's nobody taking care of that. You see hillsides that are just dead and overgrown with brush. I didn't see that in Louisville. And what they did is, years ago, when I first moved in Louisville, I was 25 years old, 25 years old, they started something called Operation Brightside. And the city would donate the bags, they'd have the trucks and any equipment you needed, and every community would organize volunteers to go out and beautify and clean up their areas, church groups. And I do a lot of walking, and there's spots where people who are living in their cars just throw their trash out. And I think I'm going to have to come up here and clean this up, and I'm going to, you know. But in one area of my neighborhood, you know, they're not parking there anymore, but for a while they were just throwing everything out, and every day, you know, there'd be new piles of rubbish. We had to close our own parking lot off here at church because it was happening. So one day I saw a guy out working on his car, and he had all this stuff out, and I thought, well, he'll pick it back up and put it in his car. And then as I was driving back, I see him taking off. And I stop, kind of angry. I roll down my window, and he comes over and says, what's up? I said, what are you doing? And he said, oh, I came back to pick this stuff up, which clearly he wasn't. And he started to go over to pick it up. And it just hit me, you know, this guy has no services. Where's he going to take that trash? He's going to take it and dump it somewhere else? He can't even go to an open dumpster because they'll call the police on him. So I got out of the car, I walked over, I said, you know what? You don't have a trash can, I do. You go on, I'll take care of this. And I picked up this stinky, smelly, urine-infested sleeping bag. It's actually a big mattress, and all the trash, and I bundled it up, put it in my car, and I took care of it. And I thought, we need an Operation Brightside in this community. We need to be providing services to our homeless population. And that's something we could do. We could get with the city and say, let us provide the bags and the pickup, and we'll organize groups to clean up for our neighbors who don't have trash cans or services or any other choice but to throw it out on the street. But if we're going to concentrate on cleanness, if cleanness is a euphemism for getting rid of homeless people because they throw trash in our streets or they don't look good, I'm not for it. Let's deal with the weeds that are growing out of the side. Let's make our city really beautiful. Let's make it comparative to other big cities. It can be a beautiful place to visit. So I got off track a little bit, Dick, but I think, funding the programs we need would come down to that. So let's see, okay, Dan, go ahead, and then I've got one more back here, and we'll try to wrap it up. So.
I just wanted to ask you to give us an update on NAUA.
Update on NAUA? Sure. So the best news is that Friday we got our articles of incorporation. Now, by the way, speaking of government, so I sent in these articles of incorporation, just paid the common fee, sent them in 3 months ago. And the check cleared immediately. Month goes by, nothing. I go online, I call, 3-hour wait on the phone. Please use our chat. Go to the chat. Chat's not available right now. And this, every time I try to contact him, this is what I got, right? And so I would email, and then I'd get an email back about 2 weeks later. And the email would essentially say, oh yeah, your check cleared, it takes 60 days. I wait 60 days, I wait 7 days, I wait 80 days, 90 days, I start another email, and I get an email. So I'm so sorry that it's, you have to wait for communication. If you would like to pay a $50 expedition fee, we will expedite your request. I can arrange a phone call. I said, I'll pay the $50. So the next day I get a phone call from I understand you'd like to expedite this filing fee. I said I think I would, but what is that going to do for me? Because I'm already well past the 60 days of not having paid an expedition fee. And he says, it means that I'll go pull the file out of the queue right now, and we'll get it to you within 72 hours. Had it that day. It's like Afghanistan or something, right? Where, hey, we can get you that Articles of Incorporation, So, but it really shows. I mean, there's something wrong with government when you pay extra $50. Someone goes downstairs, pulls a form, and gets taken care of. But anyway, so we've got our Articles of Incorporation. We've got a website just about ready to at least go up, and we have a board now, and we're going to probably be able to go online, hopefully before this month is out. If not, it'll be very early. We'll be up very early in March, and getting lots of interest. People are calling me from all over the country, or contacting me from all over the country interested in this. I'm sorry, it's called the NAUA. I should have said it. It is the North American Unitarian Association. It is something we're starting in order to help provide some of the services we were accustomed to getting through the Unitarian Universalist Association that we're no longer receiving. Yeah, okay. So one more here, and then I promise to stop because we're past. Go ahead.
So I have a question. What is your look on the word perspective, which is actually my favorite word? Because I think there's two kinds of perspective, but they both go together, and that's perspective of self and perspective of other people. And I think because I've struggled with perspective of self, which is finding yourself. I'm in high school, so I mean That's kind of a common thing, but perspective of self, of what I really want in life. And sometimes when you, like with an argument or a debate, and this goes with everything, you got to have a little perspective on both yourself. You got to know yourself, but you also got to correlate that with other people so you don't get angry and just, lash out or just create hate in your argument,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's a really good question, and I think you're right to say that they don't. At least they don't always go together, right? Not only the individual in society, but just individual in others, right? Any community, because we have our own way, our own wishes, our own wills, our own truth, about our own approach, and then we have everyone else. And sometimes we have to cooperate with others. Sometimes we choose to cooperate with others. And my approach is that when we choose to cooperate with others, that it's on us to be more open to being creative, right? So that we are, if I say I want to start the NAUA, if I want the NAUA to be a certain way, then I wouldn't ask anybody to help me with it. Right? But if I want people to help me with it, then it's going to become something different than I wanted it to be. You just open yourself up to that creative process. Otherwise, as I've given sermons before, people are not puppets, right? We shouldn't try to control people. And so there is this conflict, always between ourselves, what we want and what others want, and that's where the tolerance comes in, right? The tolerance is about recognizing that we all have different ways of doing things, different ways of seeing things, different beliefs. And the very minimum that we need to do in order to live peaceably together is to tolerate each other. Tolerance isn't a great word, right? I mean, that's like if you go to the doctor and they give you a shot, you'll tolerate it, but it's not like a joy, to get a shot. So tolerance is the minimum, but what we found as Unitarian Universalists is that, we can create communities where it gets to the point where our at least ideologies don't matter that much. It's like, I really don't care what you believe about it. If you think differently than I do, that's okay. As long as you're not, forcing me to see things your way or something. So that's the kind of society we want to create, is one that is tolerant of our differences. To the point where we can come together. But the worth question, because really we talk about the inherent worth and dignity of every person, that is a very individual thing, and I'm always tempted to say the worth and dignity of all people. And both are true, and both really should be stated, but it is a juggling act. It's never going to be perfect. And that is how society and life works, right? That forces, opposites are in tension, are in some sort of tension, right? Freedom and belonging. That's one way of putting the tension, right? That I want to be free to be myself, but if I want to belong, I'm going to have to compromise myself. And if I compromise myself to the point where all I'm doing is belonging, and I don't even know that I'm not me, that I've just become something that others have created, it's sad, right? And so as a society, we want people to unfold. I mean, when somebody unfolds, they have the potential to do things that are extraordinary for our community. That if we squelch them and say, we don't really want you to unfold and express yourself fully because it'll contradict me, then it becomes an authoritarian society. So I don't have a great answer. I just say it's a balance, and both have to be our values. You have to sort of say, these are my values, and I'm going to strive to live out my values. And then the other thing I would say, that helps, is to understand that when we have a belief, oftentimes a belief is motivated by an emotion. That's where the word motivation comes from, right? So we have an idea, and it does something emotionally to us. If we like the idea, it rewards us with dopamine feeling. And we want to protect that idea. That's what information does. Whether it's genetic information or mimetic information. right? It wants to procreate and take over. The gene pool, the meme pool, whatever it is. So ideas, we have this instinct in us to protect our ideas against other things. And so we have this subjective experience, right? The subjective feelings that feel good about an idea we have. And then we project that feeling and idea as truth. So it's no longer something contained within us. We imagine that it is truth itself. I have touched this external thing that is truth. And then, once we objectify it, we moralize it. My idea is right. So subjectify, a subjective experience, objectify it, then you moralize it, and then once you've moralized it, you are justified in doing whatever you want to those who counter your beliefs because they are morally wrong. They're not just ideologically wrong. It's not just a minor disagreement. And I've said, Unitarians, we get along really good over ideology, but if you want to talk about moving the furniture, we might have a split over that. So because we moralize it, oh, you can't move that chair. That chair's been there since Thomas Jefferson walked by or something, So anyway, I don't know. I dance with it. I try to just find balance and try to follow my values the best I can and remember that both are true. Human welfare, bottom half of Maslow's pyramid, and individual unfolding, the top half of Maslow's pyramid. To be human, we have to figure out how to do both. So, okay. Thank you. I think we'll do what we did first service. We'll just we'll have our benediction and then we'll close with shalom. Okay. Thank you.
We cannot control the way people interpret our ideas or thoughts, but we can control the words and tones we choose to convey them. Peace is built on understanding, and wars are built on misunderstandings. Never underestimate the power of a single word, and never recklessly throw around words. And one right word or one kind word can grant you the heavens and open doors. Susie Kasim. Amen, blessed be, salam alaikum, and shalom.